Hello, everyone. I hope you're all having a lovely day or evening whenever you choose to watch this. In today's lecture, we're going to be covering part 2 of theories of play, and we will be going over psychoanalytic theories, communication theories, cognitive developmental theories, and social theories. So make sure to click through all of the audio icons as well as watch the video and enjoy today's lecture. Thank you. Bye. Okay, so first we are going to discuss psychoanalytic theories. Psychoanalytic theories touch on our natural inclination or biological drives as human beings. They are considered to be innate or biological theories and emphasize the importance of early experiences to later development. Freud suggests that our personalities are shaped by our internal and external forces in the world. He believed that we have biological drives to behave in certain ways that sometimes conflict with that of societal expectations. So, for example, babies want to put everything in their mouths, and this isn't always safe or sanitary. So, Freud came up with this idea of the id, the ego, and the superego dynamic that drives our desires, unconscious and conscious thoughts, our moral judgment, and our social interactions. Freudian theory helps us to understand early personality development through play and socialization with others. As we work to express our biological drives, we end up interacting with others who help us to understand what society expects. So the baby who wants to put everything in their mouth, even though this might not be safe or sanitary, this is something that they are going to learn about society through interacting with others and adults helping them to figure out what would be safe to put in their mouths versus what wouldn't be safe to be put in their mouths. So this happens through play and other types of interactions. Freud also says that play is a way to help children to relieve objective and instinctual anxiety. Objective anxiety is fear of real life objects and dangers, and instinctual anxiety is a fear of feelings and thoughts. So in this sense, play can be very therapeutic for children. Play can provide children with a safe outlet for expression that's not limited by society's expectations. So children's behaviors through play allow them to lean on these urges that they might have and their desires, and allows them to have the freedom to be in control, whereas in the real world they might not have any control. So for example, think about a child's daily schedule. We're the adults, so we plan out when and what children are eating every day. We tell them when to take a nap and give them a time frame of when they should wake up. But during house play, children are the ones who are able to make the rules. So they plan when they're going to go to bed and wake up, and when and what they're going to eat, how they're going to dress, etc. They're the ones making the rules in their play. Also, when children have the opportunities to engage in repetitive play driven by their own motives, they have a higher chance that play will support anxiety relief associated with trauma. Now, Erikson also looked at children's play through the lens of their ego and believed that children have natural biological urges that run counter to societal expectations, and believed in the importance of early experiences. Psychosocial stages refer to the need to align our innate physiological needs with societal expectations. For example, young children like to do things for themselves, which often runs counter to what adults want children to do. Erikson recognized how important caregiver response is in these kinds of interactions and noted that play is a vehicle. Okay, sorry, I got cut off. So as I was saying, young children, they like to do things for themselves, and this often is different than what adults want children to do. And Erikson recognized this, and he recognized how important caregivers' responses are to the kinds of interactions that children have, and noted that play is a vehicle for adults and children to negotiate these life stages that children might be in. So trust versus mistrust with our young infants. Babies are starting to develop trust, and they depend on their caregivers to play peekaboo over and over again so that they don't become mistrustful and aren't able to depend on their caregivers. He also believed that play builds self-esteem for children. Play progresses through various stages that mirror development, and play helps children to become masters of the demands of reality. Play is powerful in supporting children's sense of self, their social relationships with others, and overall helps to create a better understanding for children's context of the world around them. The motives and the feelings of children are all interconnected to their age and their ability to engage in social play with others. So when children engage in play with others, they're learning to solve problems, they show their feelings towards others and just how they're feeling about situations and the world. They are able to let other people know who they are as unique individuals. So I'm going to leave you with this quote on the slide from Erikson that emphasizes the importance of play. And Erikson states that play is the most natural method of self-healing that childhood affords. Okay, so now that we have talked about psychoanalytic theories, we're going to talk about communication theories. Not only does play help to support children's innermost selves and build their connections with others through the element of social interaction, but play also requires children to communicate. Communication through play can be constructed with or without others. However, Basin has explored that regardless of who is playing, so whether a child is playing alone, children are playing together, or children are playing with adults, there are basically underlying communication rules in how play is constructed. He states that play is a way to decontextualize reality. This means that during play, children are able to distinguish through their communication what is play, also known as make-believe, and what is the real life. So this is accomplished by how children communicate during their play. What are they saying to one another to distinguish that this is real life or this is make-believe play? In Basin's theory of the play frame is the signal for decontextualization. Children can distinguish their roles as players. So, for example, if a child is feeding a baby doll during play, they understand that this is different than when they're eating food during lunchtime. And this can bring us back to our thinking from last week about how play is non-literal and a way for children to essentially escape reality. Even if children's play is a reflection of reality, play is communicated by children as being a creation, a fantasy, or a mere reflection of the real world. It's not actually the real world, it's the play world. Garvey also looked at communications of children's play. She examined the verbalizations that children use to indicate that they're shifting from the real world into a make-believe world. Children can indicate when they're going to be playing simply based on what they're saying, is what she said. So maybe they're using words such as, I have an idea, or let's pretend to be this, or let's pretend to do this. And if you look at the examples in your textbook, figure 2.1, you can see how Garvey distinguished this. So some examples are transformation of self. So if we're looking at our picture here, a child is transforming themselves into a doctor. And even though they're seen, in the real world, they might be going to the doctor or learning about doctors or seeing doctors. Transformation of self allows the child to pretend I'm a doctor. Or transformation of an object. They can say, this clay can be our medicine, or maybe they're saying, this rope can be our stethoscope. So they're able to transform themselves, objects around them, their environment to reflect what the real world is, but this is the play world instead. All right, so we've talked about psychoanalytic theories, and we've talked about communication theories, and now we're going to touch on cognitive developmental theories. So starting with the Piagetian theory, Piaget, he believed, like many other theorists, that children's play matches their level of cognitive development. So he saw children's development as something that dictates and guides their behavior, including their play. So for example, when children are around the age 0 to 2, they're in the sensory motor stage, and they engage in play that specifically focuses on sensory and motor skills. And this play is a reflection of their developmental capabilities and their thinking about the world around them. And Piaget also noted that when children are playing, they are growing and their cognition is increasing, and basically their understanding of the world around them is happening through hands-on experiences. So that kid that I mentioned earlier, our baby who is putting everything in their mouth, they're in that sensory motor stage of development, and they're exploring using their senses and their motor skills and hands-on learning experiences. And part of this process, as Piaget stated, children use assimilation and accommodation when they're playing to also understand the world around them. So let's think about a child using assimilation. A child using assimilation, they may call every animal that they see with 4 legs and fur a dog, because they have a dog at home and their dog at home has 4 legs and fur. However, once a child is provided with an alternative to their current understanding, so they are provided with new information through their hands-on play experiences, such as time spent with various animals, maybe with 4 legs and fur, like a cat or a horse, the child can then use this current knowledge for accommodation of their thinking or their schemas. And now they can group a cat, a horse, and a dog into a category or schema, 4 legs and fur. An animal that has 4 legs and fur could be a cat, a horse, and a dog, and not just a dog. And every animal that they see now with 4 legs and fur could be a cat, a horse, or a dog. Piaget also had a stance on how children inherit cognitive understanding, and this is through play, and how play is an essential element in helping children to practice life skills. Now let's think about Lev Vygotsky. So Lev Vygotsky, he studied children's origins of play and the predominancy of children's play activity. And the Vygotskian theory specifically looked at play as a zone of proximal development. So by this, Vygotsky means that play provides a scaffold for children, or a helpful support system between what a child can do on their own to higher levels of skills that essentially require support from adults or peers. And symbolic play can help children to separate the meaning from objects. So thinking about how play provides many opportunities for children to experience exploration, these experiences for exploration also connect to scaffolding for young children in the zone of proximal development. So through the zone of proximal development, children can learn and acquire new skills when they interact with children and they interact with adults who have higher knowledge than their own. And Vygotsky asserted that children become older and they're essentially able to pivot their thinking. So around the age of 3, children are able to distinguish real objects from both real and imaginary objects. A child could pretend that they're holding a wand instead of just holding a stick. The stick becomes the wand, and they can act upon this transformation of their object, their stick to a wand, from reality during their pretend play. And finally, Vygotsky, in order to fully understand the complexity of play, he noted that play must be considered in both a social cultural context as well as a historical context. So I want you to take a look at the video linked here below to learn more about the ideas of dramatic play and how it's seen through the eyes of predominant theorists such as Vygotsky, Piaget, Freud, and Erikson. And while you're watching, I want you to think about how play is essentially influenced by social interactions and all the theories that we've discussed thus far. Okay, so last but not least, one more slide to talk about social theories. So if you haven't already gathered by now, play is a gateway activity for children to engage socially and for them to build connections with others. And Mildred Parton, she examined different developmental trends in social play. She studied how children play in a variety of different ways. So we have our child who is the onlooker, and they're essentially observing children while playing. And then we have children who might engage in parallel play. So they're not playing together, but they're playing and they're side by side near one another. They could even be playing the same activity, but they're not playing together. They're just near each other in the same shared play space. And we also have children who are engaged in cooperative play, where they might be engaging and participating and sharing back ideas back and forth, and they're sharing the materials that they're using, and they're actively working and talking and communicating with one another to utilize their materials and play as a group. And Parton's work is actually still used today and is a big way that we look at how to understand the social context of how children play and at what age they might begin to engage and play with others, and the various stages of social interaction in children's play. And we're going to be returning to Parton's ideas and the level of social play in upcoming lectures. This is just a mini introduction to her work. But we also want to think of play not only in a way for children to build social connections and engage with each other socially, but also how the social context of play relates to culture and how culture is an extremely important role in play. And Corsaro, he examined the communication patterns involved with peer cultures. So he looked at the way that children talk to one another, the way that their communication patterns are, as a way to determine social groups for play. And play talk, as it's called, describes the social context for children's play in the sense of who has the power in the play, who are the players in the play, and what are the social statuses of said players, and then also who's excluded from the play. So all the different roles in the social groups and what they're doing for the play. And if you look at figure 2.6 in our text, you can see how children's commands and their responsiveness to directions, the questions that they ask or don't ask, and the actions that they do all influence their role in the play setting. And this basically shows us that culture, play, and socialization all matter in how play is formed, created, and connected.